Let me now share with you the 5 keys to health and healing that I utilize for every single one of my patients, whether they come in healthy and we want to keep them that way, or they're already challenged and we want to get them better. You can download this PDF for yourself for free at holistichealingvet.com. So the first thing we want to talk about is pollution. How do we stop polluting the body? The second step is nutrients. How do we make sure that all the essential nutrients are provided for the body? Now, an essential nutrient is a nutrient that the body cannot make in sufficient quantity on its own. And there are some very specific things that we have to eat in our diet or we will have deficiencies. Number 3 is we have to heal the gut, which we're going to go into a lot in detail. Number 4 is detoxification of the 6 organs of elimination. They are the kidney, the colon, the lungs, the liver, the skin, and the lymphatics. And then last but not least is we need to have big, healthy, lots of them mitochondria. So we'll talk about how to create mitochondrial biogenesis. So we talked about toxins, and we could cover a lot. I could do a whole hour presentation on toxins, but let's just talk about food for right now. We have processed foods on the left side, and then we have a balanced raw diet on the right. Why does that make a difference? Well, processed food is enzymatically dead. There are no enzymes in processed foods. Therefore, when an animal is eating processed foods, the only organ they can use to digest is their pancreas. So not a wonder why our older animals have pancreatic disease. Balanced raw food has living enzymes in it, just like when we eat raw food ourselves. We are able to improve our digestion because the enzymes are what help break down our food. Processed food has carbohydrates to the tune of 40 to 60%. Another way of saying that is it's over 50% sugar. Where a balanced raw diet, species appropriate, what they were designed to eat, will have less than 1% carbohydrates. Kibble diets have no moisture. Well, our carnivores were designed to eat another animal when they killed it in the state that they killed it in, and that animal would have had 70% of the moisture or water content that that animal needed. This is particularly important for cats because cats are already coming from the desert. They're already, biologically speaking, a dehydrated species. They were designed to operate on a low water intake. But when you take their diet and you make it into a kibble and you lose 70% more of the water that they would have taken in, creates a big problem. No wonder we have kidney disease as the #1 killer of cats. And then in processed foods that is not organic, we have hormones, chemicals, pesticides, and of course, genetically modified organisms, which we're going to get into. Where a balanced raw diet should be grass-fed and grass-finished or organic. So you need to ask that because the crazy laws that we have, if a animal is out on a grass pasture for 1 day, even 1 hour, it could be called grass-fed. And then they're put back into a feedlot. So you want to make sure it's grass-fed and grass-finished. And of course, we talked about how processed food, 85% has been tested and identified to be low to no vitamin D because those animals never saw sunlight. Where a balanced raw diet with a grass-fed, grass-finished animal is going to have adequate amount of vitamin D. Water is the next area that we want to talk about because it is essential for life. Most of the clients that come to me for the first time are feeding their animals tap water, which has over 64,000 identified toxins, many of which are carcinogens, meaning they make cancer. And so that's not what we want to be giving our animals. And if you use plastic bottled water, that has another 24,000 chemicals and it's not structured. So we want to look for a water source that is highly filtered, highly structured, which means it's the way that the water molecule is put together. So it's the right size to fit into the cell. And then in my world, I like to have molecular hydrogen in that water that's being produced. So we have machines that make highly filtered, structured molecular hydrogen water, which is the most hydrating water and healthiest water that we could provide for our pets. Let's talk a little bit more about hydrogen because it's the most important element in nature. Without hydrogen, The electrical pulses could not be transmitted. The communication system would not work. Hydrogen also neutralizes the free radicals. They're represented by hydroxyl groups OH minus. So hydrogen acts as an antioxidant. It neutralizes these oxidative compounds, and the formula H plus OH minus produces water. But the water that is made in this reaction is structured and it's deuterium depleted. That's very important, not for today's lecture, but super important. So I'm going to recommend that you look at your water source, because if you have an animal or yourself that does not have a healthy gut, you aren't making hydrogen for your body. Hydrogen is supposed to be made in the gut if you have nice, healthy, tight junctions and you have the right microbes. So we make hydrogen in a machine two different ways. One machine uses a reaction with magnesium, no electricity is required, and the other uses electrolysis, which obviously requires electricity. Well, I live in Florida, and we have a lot of power outages throughout the whole hurricane season. So I love my machine that uses magnesium, because even if we don't have power, we always have water. Talk a little bit more about the essential nutrients. That was step number 2 in the process. We talked about the vitamins and minerals. Vitamin D is not just important. Vitamin D is essential in the body's innate immune system. So we have to make sure we're getting adequate quantities of vitamin D. Can't look at an animal and see what it is. You have to test for it. B12 is made by bacteria in a healthy gut. But our conversation today is all about animals with inflammatory bowel disease and all kinds of GI disorders. So you know those animals are not making good, healthy amounts of B12. Minerals, magnesium is one of the 13 minerals that come from the soil that need to be into the body, and amino acids such as taurine, arginine, histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine are the essential ones that have to be provided. The animals cannot synthesize these. Now, dogs are supposed to synthesize taurine from methionine and cysteine, which is found in red meat. But it's interesting that we're seeing dogs with cardiomyopathy that are eating these diets that are inappropriate and are causing heart disease. And I think it's because of something I'm going to teach you here coming up, and it has to do with the toxins in the environment that are inhibiting that process. The other essential that we have to talk about are the essential fatty acids. Now, most people have been indoctrinated to think that essential fatty acids come from fish oils. Well, that is actually not the case. In fact, most fish oils that are on the market are rancid and can actually cause more damage than good. I'm going to teach you about the parent essential oils. We call them PEOs. The parent omega-6 is linoleic acid, and the apparent omega-3 is alpha linoleic acid. These two essential fatty acids make up 25 to 33% of all cell membranes. The mitochondria use hundreds to thousands of these parent essentials in their metabolic processes. They act as oxygen magnets in the cell membrane. It's kind of like the brick and mortar that holds a cell together. So when they aren't there, we get oxygen depletion. Very important that we use the parents. All the other fatty acids are actually metabolites of these two essential fatty acids. So the body can make all of the other fatty acids from these two essential fatty acids. Remember, they're essential because the body cannot make them. They have to be eaten. Now, we talked about number 3 was heal the gut. And the autonomic nervous system has a big role on gut health. The autonomic nervous system is made up of 2 parts, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. And as represented by the children on the teeter-totter, they are on a teeter-totter from each other. The sympathetic side kicks in when there is danger. It's your fight, flight, danger mode. It's what helps you survive when there is a crisis going on. I call it the sad American day, the standard American day, because we live in a country now where it's always about stress, stress, stress. It's stress over kids, it's stress over work, it's stress over bills, it's stress over COVID, whatever it is. We live in this very high sympathetic state. The parasympathetic side is our rest, repair, digest, detoxify, and reproduction side. So imagine if you are staying in high sympathetic tone, that means that your parasympathetic side is turned off and you don't have the ability to rest, repair, digest, or detoxify. So chronic stress has an impact on the gut first of all, the gut produces most of our neurotransmitters, and they are produced when we are in a parasympathetic state. So 90% of the serotonin and 50% of the dopamine that is produced in the body by the gut is made by the gut, only when you're in a parasympathetic state. When you're in high sympathetic tone, you're releasing epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol. And we know that cortisol punches holes in the gut membrane. So when you stay in high sympathetic tone and you have high cortisol, you're going to have leaky gut. Opportunistic pathogens like bacteria and viruses that are living in the gut, they pick up these neurochemicals. So if they pick up serotonin and dopamine, we know things are good. But if we're picking up epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol, then we know there is danger on the forefront. Our host is compromised, and so we need to turn on those pathogens to make more virulence genes because we are trying to survive in this very bad state. The brain further creates more dysbiosis by the emotions that the individual is feeling, and it further promotes the overgrowth of these pathogens. When we change the emotions, we change the metabolic response in the gut, and this happens really fast. So it doesn't take very long for these pathogens to create inflammation, more leaky gut, drive more brain dysfunction. It becomes this hamster wheel that keeps going around and around. And like I said, it happens really fast.